Leonard makes it official. Now the Warriors just inbound, and that's it. There's a new NBA champion, and it's a team from Toronto, Canada.
It's always been said that a multitude of things must happen in order for a team to become an NBA champion. While a select few of teams shown here were winning NBA titles, the Raptors in the early 2010s were going through another rebuilding phase. Up to this point, what you see is Tracy McGrady leaving for the Magic, Vince Carter, then in the prime of his career, leaving for the Nets. Then Chris Bosh ended up going to Miami, with the Raptors seemingly having to go through another rebuild. So how did the team that Chris Bosh left at the beginning of the decade end up winning the championship at the end of the decade? Well, let's pick things up at the 2013 season. The team had a number of issues. They had 3 mediocre seasons without Chris Bosh, where they were neither a playoff or a lottery team. They had terrible team culture. Kyle Lowry had just gotten there and was already prepared to leave. And there was no clear direction on who the actual main stars and the leaders of the team actually were. This season starts with the hiring of Tim Leiweke, the ultimate salesman and previous president of the AEG Group. He became the president of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, which included the Toronto Raptors, Toronto Maple Leafs, and Toronto FC. Anyways, there's a lot to say about Tim Leiweke's tenure, but let's stick with the Raptors and what he did there. From the very start, Tim had really ambitious goals with the Toronto Raptors. What Tim Leiweke got right were 2 really important things. Number 1, team culture was absolutely essential. You'll see later on how Tim Leiweke begins to change that in the Toronto Raptors franchise. The second was something that he learned from the Lakers when he was there, and it was to hire the right basketball executive and allow them to do their job without micromanaging them.
I watched Dr. Buss and Jerry West build the Lakers, and I learned a couple of real valuable lessons there in LA. First of all, when you're around people that good and that smart, get out of their way, and don't try to pretend like you know more than you don't. And 2, Jerry West, for me, was the consummate teacher about what it takes to win.
For Dr. Jerry Buss, owner of the Lakers, that executive was Jerry West. For Tim Leiweke, that executive was Masai Ujiri. This began the journey of rebuilding the Raptors through Masai Ujiri. Right from the very start, Masai Ujiri makes a series of trades that allows the Raptors to turn from a rebuilding team to a playoff one. The first trade Masai Ujiri makes is trading Andrea Bargnani to the New York Knicks for Steve Novak, Marcus Camby, Quentin Richardson, and a future first-round pick, as well as 2 second-round picks. Essentially, what Masai was able to do was be able to get rid of a negative asset and at the same time receive the Knicks' first-round pick in 2016. And because the Knicks were terrible in 2016, the Raptors got the number 9 pick, which they used to select Jakob Poeltl, a versatile big man.
With the 9th pick in the 2016 NBA Draft, the Toronto Raptors select Jakob Poeltl from Vienna, Austria.
Next, the Raptors traded Rudy Gay, and they got John Salmons, Gravis Vasquez, Chuck Hayes, and Patrick Patterson in return. You see, from these 2 trades, Masai Ujiri accomplishes 3 really important things. Number 1, he got rid of the Raptors' longest tenured player, as well as Rudy Gay, in order to set up a clear hierarchy for the team. The 2 team leaders were DeMar DeRozan, as well as Kyle Lowry. You see, in basketball, it's important to know what your roles are, and at that point, there were just way too many people trying to be the guy on the Raptors team. Now we knew our direction, and it was with DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry as our point guard. Second, Ujiri saves cap space and receives assets in return. He gets rid of Bargnani's huge contract, who ends up being terrible for the Knicks, and gets a first-round pick out of it. He also gets rid of Rudy Gay, another huge contract. Lastly, Masai Ujiri was able to bring in a supporting cast that could help DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry with 3-point shooters, a backup point guard, veteran leadership, and a rebounder. Within 1 season, Masai Ujiri led the Raptors to a franchise-best 48 wins, something they never did with Vince Carter or Chris Bosh. In addition, they made it to the playoffs for the first time since 2007. The notion that you have to be a lottery team every year before you can contend in the playoffs is just pure garbage. If you have an excellent president like Masai, you can get there in 1. To top it off, Lowry, who originally wanted to leave the team, signs a 4-year team-friendly deal, recognizing the team's potential.
Thank you. This organization is from top to bottom, from Mr. Tannenbaum down to, Kevy and Paulie and down to Gus and, for all the people through and through. It's an unbelievable first-class organization. I think everyone's all in the leagues on the same page. There's never a person that's not in the loop. I think that's how you start a great organization and franchise. And I wanted to be a part of that. And, for me, just coming back here and wanting to do something special. Everyone says Toronto can't do this or Toronto can't, sign back their own, 8 free agents. I just proved that wrong. I'm back.
Since 2013, the Raptors have become perennial playoff contenders, and it was because Masai Ujiri was able to draft incredibly well. In the 2013 draft, we had no picks because our previous president was terrible at keeping or bringing in any draft pick assets. In 2014, we got Bruno Caboclo, who was underdeveloped but later proved to be useful for the Memphis Grizzlies in the 2018-2019 season. In the 2015 NBA draft, we got DeLon Wright in the first round, an excellent, tall backup point guard that we used eventually to trade for Marc Gasol. We were also able to get Norman Powell in the second round, a pick we fleeced from Milwaukee after we traded Gravis Vasquez to them. In the 2016 draft, we were able to get Jakob Poeltl, again from the New York Knicks trade, and Pascal Siakam, our future superstar. We were also able to get Fred VanVleet, who was undrafted during our summer league tryouts. In 2017, we get OG Anunoby, again from the Vasquez trade with Milwaukee. In 2018 and 2019, we were in championship building mode, so we didn't have any first-round draft picks due to various trades. Yet we still somehow were able to get Terrence Davis, undrafted, and by this point, we had so many assets that not having a couple of draft picks was okay. Because of what happens to Bruno Caboclo and his underdevelopment, the next improvement that Masai Ujiri makes is on our D-League team. To the credit of MLSE, they invest in a new BioSteel facility, as well as purchasing a D-League team to help us develop our young players, without having to send them to another D-League affiliate. What Masai Ujiri recognized was that beyond drafting the right players, you have to be able to develop them the right way. There are many examples of other franchises who do draft well in terms of raw talent, but are unable to develop their players in the right way. Fortunately, now we have the Raptors 905 to help develop our players, and some prominent alumni that came out of this team were Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, Norman Powell, Jakob Poeltl, DeLon Wright, as well as other depth players like Chris Bosh, Lorenzo Brown, Alfonso McKinney, Jordan Lloyd, Malcolm Miller, and O'Shea Brissett. The reason why the Raptors have been so consistent in the regular season is not necessarily due to our top-end talent, but rather our depth created by our Raptors 905. Anybody can come in when there are injuries and provide consistent minutes. Where other teams may struggle due to their various injuries, the Raptors can navigate their injuries to their main stars with ease, because we have that depth coming from the Raptors 905 organization. While the formula of drafting well and developing players may be useful for the regular season, this does not necessarily equate to playoff success. During this time, the Raptors had many difficult playoff runs. While having unprecedented regular season success, the Raptors got swept by the Wizards, then lost to the Cavaliers 3 straight times. Something was missing. You see, the playoffs are completely different to the regular season. For one, the bench matters way less compared to the regular season because the starters just play more. Second, most NBA championships teams have an MVP candidate. If you look at the last decade of winners, you had the Golden State Warriors with Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, the Cleveland Cavaliers led by LeBron James, the Spurs led by Kawhi Leonard and Tim Duncan, and the Miami Heat also led by LeBron James. The only team that won the NBA title in the last 20 years without an MVP-level superstar was the Detroit Pistons in 2004, who played an innovative style of defense and caught the Lakers on the tail end of their dynasty. You could argue the Spurs in 2014 also did not have an MVP-caliber player, as Kawhi was still maturing, and the big three for the Spurs were in the tail end of their careers. But the Spurs had one of the most innovative offenses ever, led by incredible ball movement and intelligence. So how were the Raptors going to add these elements to their team? Well, first, they had to get rid of their coach. Dwayne Casey was a great coach for team culture, but he was very old-schooled and just didn't adapt fast enough to the changing principles within offense, which required pace and space, and defense, which required more switching and greater double teams. Masai Ujiri had already recognized this in the 2017 and 2018 season, and forced Dwayne Casey to use the innovative offense led by Nick Nurse, who was at the time his assistant coach. Unfortunately, the Raptors were once again swept in the 2018 playoffs to the Cleveland Cavaliers, led by LeBron James, and this led Dwayne Casey to be fired. Nick Nurse was subsequently promoted to head coach, and he changed the offense from the previous season and now changed the team to use a more innovative defense. We used more double teams against Joel Embiid in the second round. We then used a 2-3 zone against the Milwaukee Bucks in the conference finals. Then we used the box and won against the Golden State Warriors. I can go on and on about how innovative and great the Raptors switch and help defense is, but there are other videos discussing this topic, which I will link below. So now what the Raptors had was a very innovative coach who made evolutionary steps towards defense as well as offense. But we were still lacking a superstar who could really help us in terms of our championship run. The second more publicized change to the Raptors was the acquisition of Kawhi Leonard in exchange for DeMar DeRozan. When the trade occurred, many ESPN personalities said that it was a highly risky move for the Raptors, which tells you how much they know about basketball. In my opinion, if the goal of the franchise is to win a title, it was not a risky trade at all, because there's really only two routes. First, worst case scenario, Kawhi Leonard is too hurt to play, or doesn't want to play for the Raptors. Well, you can then start rebuilding right away in the following year and have opened up cap space by moving DeRozan's massive contract. 2, Kawhi Leonard plays and is really great, and you have a realistic shot at the championship. Even in the worst case scenario, I believe the Raptors still could have been a great regular season team. That season, we saw the emergence of Pascal Siakam as a potential superstar, and we still had our amazing bench depth that we've shown through the 2019 and 2020 season. So no matter what, we could have been great in the regular season. These moves were about trying to win the title in the 2019 playoffs. And yes, throughout the playoffs, there was a lot of luck involved to allow the Raptors to win the title.
It's off to Leonard, defended by Simmons. Is this the dagger? Game! Series! Toronto has won!
But Masai Ujiri built a team that could contend, and that's really all you can ask for. The last thing I want to mention is the absolutely amazing culture of the Toronto Raptors. This organization, spearheaded by Tim Leiweke since 2013, has been absolutely magnificent and top class. We host amazing events, such as the 2016 All-Star Game, we have amazing community events, and we have incredibly high character players.
It's a beautiful event tonight. You know, what you think of the event? Man, it's just great to be out here, giving back to the fans, meeting all these guys that support us all year long, giving back, like, in a sense that all this money that we're making tonight is going to charity. Like, it's just overall a great night.
You know, we had the whole Raptor roster over here. We got DeMar, everybody, you know, so what do you think is the best dressed?
Man, there's this guy on the team, I don't know if y'all know him. His name's Skills. He showed up, like, nice shirt with some jacket on.
I can take the jacket off, though. I can take the jacket off, though.
Aloha. Play the clip, man. Play the clip, man.
Play the clip, man.
Aloha.
Hey. Man, we want to get back to all the episodes, you know what I'm saying? I be watching Open Gym, it's like 10 minutes. What happened, man? We need more minutes. We need more minutes. I feel y'all, I know what the fans talking about. We need more minutes. It's like 10 minutes. I can't even get into it yet. 10 minutes is like the beginning of the last episode, you know what I'm saying? So, come on, man, get it right. It's OG now? It's like, oh, it's Open Gym now. OG or OJ now. OJ? Every time I say play the clip, this is the clip you gotta play. OG, play the clip.
So to the teams that have been really bad for many years, the good news is that you only need a good executive to make the playoffs. The bad news is, if you want to win the NBA title, you will most likely need an MVP candidate, or just revolutionize the game in offense or defense. Simple. Thanks for watching until the end of the video. If you really like this video, please click like and subscribe, and I will make more Raptors content.